Hi, everybody. Jen Hatmaker here, your host of the For the Love podcast. Y'all, welcome to the show. I'm just delighted that you're here, and I think you're going to be too, because we are in the middle of a series called For the Love of Funny. Funny. You know how much I personally am here for funny people, funny situations, funny TV, funny material. I just love it all. I mean, I really do. I've just been both a fan and a student and an amateur purveyor of comedy for so long. And so talking to these really creative and smart people who have made comedy their career is just so fun for me. I wanted this series to go on for 100 years. This week's guest is a real genius, honestly, at what is probably my favorite kind of humor, or at least in the top two. That sort of observational humor, just those moments in life, like however mundane, but being able to spin them into gold, right? This is a normal thing or this is a common thing, but the way I'm going to tell it will have us like howling on the floor. I have always loved that particular brand of humor. And so, and unless you think that he only lives in the normal space for his comedy, like making observations about everyday life, you can think again, because some legitimately weird stuff happens to him. It's like the universe just keeps handing him content for him to tell funnier and funnier stories. So, you guys, I'm so excited to talk today with comedian Tom Papa. You know him, of course. Tom has had an incredibly diverse career. He's 2 decades into stand up, which is rare and special. Tom has two recent specials on Netflix, one called What a Day, and the other one called You're Doing Great, which is hysterical. Um, he's a writer, wrote both of books. He's written 3 books, and for shows like NPR's Live from Here, he on that show he was the head writer and then also the traveling correspondent going like from state to state just talking to people and being like a magnet for weird and hilarious things he would then go on to describe in the way that he does and kind of this straight delivery, which is just so fun. um, Tom's also an actor. He's been in a lot of films over the years, like Analyze This with Robert De Niro. Oh my gosh. He was in B Movie, Jerry Seinfeld's movie. And then, if that wasn't enough, as of this year, he's also a podcast host for the show called Breaking Bread with Tom Papa, which basically features Tom and then a host of cool and funny guests every week who just eat and drink and have funny conversations. Um, because it makes sense. And he and I talk about this. He has a reputation for becoming a really good baker. And so, of course, I didn't let him get away without talking about what drew him into the kitchen and why and what he loves about it. So we're obviously going to have that in this conversation. In addition to all kinds of fascinating things, Tom really talks about his creative process and his writing process and what he's learned over the years. And I asked him what his favorite genre is because he operates in so many silos. And I just found him so like warm and present, just really like with me in this conversation. In fact, when we wrapped up the conversation and I stopped recording, we stayed on the phone for another 10 minutes talking about raising young adults and this generation and social media. I was just, I don't know. I was really like delighted to meet him today and to have him on the show. And a comic of this like stature is so special. And so I think you're going to love this conversation as much as I did. So I'm so pleased to share it with you. So welcome to the show, Tom Papa. Tom, I'm so happy to meet you. I've really been looking forward to this conversation because I think you are, I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but I think you're a real genius comic. And I'm delighted to have you on the show.
It's really nice to be here. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah. Okay. So, most of my listeners, of course, know who you are. You've had such a strong career. It's just multifaceted. You are prolific. You've got a lot of silos that you have operated in, which is special. I don't find that super common to be able to take what it is that you do so well and apply it to all these different genres. But you've got, I mean, TV and books and writing and movies and podcasts, it's a lot. Um, so for my listeners who are just, they're meeting you today, or they just want to hear you talk about your life. Um, can you talk a little bit about kind of your coming up, how you grew up a little bit, and why you're funny? Did you come up from a funny family? Did you have a funny parent or two, or siblings? Or sometimes I notice that a lot of funny people develop it by hook or by crook in
Mm,
childhood, whether they wanted to or not.
yeah.
Anyway, I'd love to
Yeah.
hear kind of your origin story a bit.
Well, it's pretty vast, but
Mm.
I'll start with the people around me when I was little. Uh, my mother's side was funny. There was some storytellers in there. My mother was funny. She would do impressions of everybody in our life. She was always breaking up and doing that. My father was pretty serious. He was pretty stoic. But my mother was kind of like the kids, and she would be like screwing around with the same kind of thing, like we might get in trouble with this guy. So it was kind of like a good model of what looking back, I didn't think of it at the time, but looking back, like not only was she funny, but it was also a little bit of we're getting away with something. Her father was very funny. He was a like a salesman and stuff. He was from Hoboken in Jersey City. We grew up in New Jersey, and he was like a salesman, and he could light people up pretty good. On my father's side, it was a huge family. It was like 21. I was one of 21 grandchildren, and we saw each other frequently. Everybody was in the area, and we would see each other almost weekly. And there was an uncle in there. My uncle Tony was really funny. He would sit at the table and hold court. So there were definitely these funny, and then like some cousins were funny. And so I definitely gravitated towards those people. That always kind of informed me. And you know, I started doing that like around my friends and stuff, like very, very early, like really early, like kindergarten early. Uh yeah. So there was definitely that element of it. And there's also this weird element of like you just wanted to screw around. Like you definitely like there immediately like showing up at school, I was not inclined to take any of this seriously.
You're like, since I have to be here, might as well get some laughs.
Yeah, I was
Um,
much more interested in
yeah,
all the kids
uh-huh.
than I was in anything that old person had to say.
Totally. Did that continue? Like, I always love the moment that someone tells their authorities, their adult, their parents, for a job, I'm gonna tell jokes. That's the path I'm carving out, and I'm always curious how that went, and if they were like, yeah, this makes perfect sense, or like, please, just like one English degree, like
Yeah.
just
Yeah, do something. That
yeah.
was that was kind of the deal. Uh I knew in 7th grade was the time that I found out that being funny was a job.
Ah,
That was the
why? What
first
were your mentors? What were you watching?
I that summer I heard my first two comedy albums.
Oh,
Friends had Steve Martin's Let's Get Small, and then my other friend, he had Class Clown by George Carlin. And I heard both of those in like a week. And that clicked that, oh man, these are grown-ups. This is, and I was already at 7th grade. I was funny. Like I was working it. I had no idea it could be a job. So I was like, that just clicked, and that was purely it. And I think by the time I was like leaving high school, uh, it was pretty clear that's the direction I was headed. But my parents were, I don't remember it being a discussion, but they did say that, like, get a degree. Like, you could do whatever you want, but you should have a degree. And I think that was smart. I think it gave me other tools to, you know, balance a checkbook and stuff.
Sure.
you know, uh, but yeah, that's when it clicked. It was
Uh-huh.
really realizing, oh, old people, you could do this forever
That's right. That's
and
right.
get.
Those sort of, I remember listening to stand-up shows on tape, like just plugging them into my boombox. And what a world. What a world. This is a thing. I cut all my teeth on Eddie Murphy and a lot of his early stuff. And I had to watch it at other people's houses because we didn't have HBO. But just like you, I found it at friends' houses.
Yeah,
And
you become like a little truffle pig. You're like
yeah,
you're
totally.
you're sniffing it out everywhere you go.
Completely. Um, your brand of humor is at the top of my favorite type of comedy. Um, your your knack for observational humor is so funny, and somehow you have weird things happen to you too. So like you've got real life offers you a lot of content and a lot of material that you can just mine the depths of, but I'm curious if that was always your first reach. Like, are you just the guy constantly paying attention to what's going around you and what's funny about mundane things? And then, of course, you spin it into gold. You know, there's always a bit of hyperbole, of course, and exaggeration to every good comic. But, um, or I'm wondering if you tried on a handful of different hats when it, because there's just a lot of ways to skin the cat. There's a lot of ways to be funny, and there's a lot of different styles. And yours, you're so in the pocket of your style. Was that it for you from the jump, sort of observational humor, or did you kind of find your way to that?
It was always pretty observational, and but also shrouded in family. Like I always had, it always came back to the people around me, the people in my, when I was younger, the family I grew up in, and then later the family that I made, and then expands a little bit out into like the community or the country. Like, but I always see it as a human endeavor. That part to me is the most intriguing. And it's gotten more so as I've gotten older and I've gone through all these phases of that. Uh and then it's yeah, and then it becomes like the distillation or the observation about all that stuff that kind of comes from it. Um it's interesting. There's definitely the I always have this thing, and I've been going through it lately, and I had it even when I started, where I would think of like bigger topics. I would think of, you know, bigger bigger stuff. Like right now I'm noodling around with everybody in therapy, and how we're all like this kind of, and then it always ends up being a little preachy. And then I'm always like, where's the silly, where's the funny in it? And then it starts going down through the filter, and then it ends up like, and then it ends up with something, about me shoplifting as an adult.
Of course.
And you know what I mean? But it is kind of
Yeah.
funny because
Mm,
I have these like larger things, but it always
yeah.
kind of then starts to filter down to, well, how is that? And maybe it's my way to relate, and I relate through family and
Yeah.
kind of this small stuff. So it's weird. It's like it is observational, but it's not in person. It's very personal
Yeah.
observational in a way.
Yeah. That's my experience of your material for sure. There's always a touch point. There's always a like a real clear entry point into the material that's usually you centered or somebody that you love or know. Um, where do you? where do you workshop your stuff? How do you start whittling it down? Is it just in smaller venues, kind of the comedian's way, of having to get in front of a live crowd and see what lands and what doesn't? Is it your poor family? Are they constantly like, here we go again? Yeah, no, it isn't. And my
No.
family's uninterested in really anything I do professionally at all.
Yeah, and then they become uh they're not great judges.
Oh no, they're mean. They're
Yeah.
mean. There's no generosity at all. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
brutal audience. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Skip them.
Yeah, skip that. No, it's
Hmm.
got to be me and a bunch of strangers for
Yeah, of
sure.
course.
There's definitely, as much as I'll go through phases, uh the working stuff out in town at the clubs is so valuable. It really is. And I know some people, they get to a point where they're playing theaters and they don't go to the clubs any longer. I think it's a mistake because you have your audience in the theater and they pretty much go with
Mm,
whatever you're going to
good
give
point.
them. And
Hmm.
then I'll walk into the Comedy Store thinking about this joke, this area that I want, and it's like all of a sudden you feel the instinct like, oh no, this isn't going to play here. This is, and that's a great thing. That's a great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with playing to your audience and having them be happy, but to keep the to keep the standard really high, it should hit everybody, and it should be potent enough uh, that I could bring it to both of these places, and that'll improve the theater show. So I really so I definitely like I have a chunk in that therapy section that is it's all over the place. It's like I'm not really sure what I'm saying. I want to be clear, but I also want to be funny. And also all I'm doing is taking that to the Comedy Cellar when I'm in New York and the Comedy Store out here in Largo. And I just I'm only working on that. I'm just purely working on that. And then I'll go and do it at the store, and then I'll come home and then I'll see what worked and kind of edit a little bit and try and go back out and do it again. So it's like those are like it's like the workshop. And then it can fold into the larger act when I go out on the weekend.
Right. And by the time you have folded it into the larger act, you've done it so many times and you have fine tuned it and fine tuned it. I love to hear the comics process because comedy is hard. It is a really narrow and specialized skill set. And it's not just clowning around. It isn't. I mean, if you do it well in the final display of it, it feels super casual, like you're just in the pocket, you're just talking to us like you're, but that is not really how it works at all. It is billions of hours of ideas, something from the seed of an idea all the way to the big stage is a huge process and a lot of work. I find it easier to be dramatic than funny. Funny is
Yeah.
hard and it's special.
Yeah, well, because
Um,
you have one because they're telling you whether you did it or not.
that's right. Immediately. The
If you're
feedback is
dramatic,
immediate.
you don't really there's no response
Yeah.
that's saying you nailed it. So you could
Yeah.
walk away thinking you nailed it.
So
Did
true.
you? I don't know. But
We
with
wouldn't
comedy,
know.
it's
Yeah.
very clearly there's only one
Great point.
response that we're working for. And if it's they don't laugh, then you didn't do it.
Oh gosh, it really is a brutal mirror, isn't it? Um,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear you.
But it is
Go ahead.
true. It's like you can always tell like the better comics, you could see all of a sudden they're in the club again and they're there with frequency and you can just tell like, oh, she's working on something, she's here, she's like going, and it's 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 pretty great to watch. And that's the thing, there really is no other way to do it. There's no shortcut. I mean, like I said, you could just do it on the weekends when you're doing in your theater, and I know there's some people that do that, but uh the ones that get really tight, in my
Yeah.
opinion, are they're working it in different places.
Who are you really enjoying right now as like colleagues or contemporaries? Who do you think is really interesting or original or somebody that you look forward to hearing do a set?
Um, man, there's so many.
Uh-huh.
I love comedians. Um, I always love when I see Gary Goldman or Ryan Hamilton, Maria Bamford, who I haven't run into in a while, but every time I catch her on Instagram, it's like she's still better than everybody.
Mm, mm,
Colin Quinn,
yeah.
who's just a veteran, who's just the most prolific of everybody. He writes so much more than everybody, and it's like a real dedication to it. And Mateo Lane is really funny out of New York, and he's been getting more and more success. More people are paying attention, which is great. Uh, who else? I mean, there's just so many. Ali Wong, when she's kind of the one on my mind at the Comedy Store of like putting together her new act.
Do you find when you are out in all the venues really that a lot of the young comics are coming to you for well, just to be near you, first of all, but also for advice or for any little crumbs that you're willing to offer? Is that a hungry crew, the up and comers?
Yes and no.
Hmm.
It in the beginning there, I think everyone's just freaked out and they don't want. They
Oh,
just, you know what I mean. And then it's like
yeah,
once they get to like another level, then there'll be like casual conversations and they
yeah.
start to pick it out. I think when they first show up, it's a little they're just too freaked.
Oh, I mean, I mean, it's just I can imagine that doing stand up is just like being on the edge, especially when you're young in it, when you're new in it, you're still learning your own rhythms and learning to read the room. And I mean, it's a little bit probably terrifying slash exhilarating. I'm not really sure which one, but
Yeah,
um,
and it's like anything in life when you're around people that are doing what you want to do in time, you just want someone to say, you know, it'll work. Just tell me it'll work out.
totally,
It's
totally.
like sometimes you go to the doctor, just tell me everything's all
That's
right.
right. That's right. I don't want any news but that.
Yeah.
Um, I was chatting with my book clubbers just the other day in one of our Zoom book talks about the fact that we've been reading together, you guys, for more than 4 years. It's crazy. We have read tons of incredible, impactful, thought-provoking, fun books during that time in the Jen Hatmaker Book Club. And this upcoming season is going to be amazing too. I actually can't wait to get into the lineup of books we have planned. And if you aren't reading with us, let's fix that. When you're a book club member, not only do you get a book box delivered to your doorstep every month with the book, of course, and a special gift and love notes for me. It's so fun. But we also have live chats on Zoom in our private group. Plus, it's really the best corner of the internet over there. I mean, like, sure, we talk about books every month, of course, but also about life. People are making lifelong friends there and finding connection with others right in their towns, getting together with their local chapters. It's amazing. When you're in book club, you guys get a whole bunch of digital resources like discussion guides and custom content and music playlists from our authors, which are our favorite. So just head over to jenhatmakerbookclub.com to sign up. Start reading with us and making book friends. So you guys, we want you in. It's jenhatmakerbookclub.com. If you're anything like me, your size may go up or down a little. Like our bodies just fluctuate like bodies do. From week to week, month to month, sometimes year to year. That's normal. It's okay. It's even good sometimes. We're human people with human bodies. But sometimes it can make clothes kind of annoying and dumb. Like even small shifts are enough to make a size change, which can be a problem because we can't just buy clothes forever, right? So I see you raising your hand out there. You're with me on this. I get fights into zippers just like the rest of us. So here's what I want you to know, and a hack that I have discovered for myself. My friends over at Able Clothing have solved this problem with something new, and they're calling it the Size Swap Program. For, I'm not kidding, forever amount of time. When you shop their Size Swap collection, you can exchange these items for a new size that fits you best for free and for always.
It's the easy button for clothes. And some of our favorite looks are in the size swap collection, including the best denim jacket in the world that I obsess over. Tons of amazing like layering shirts and graphic tees, the most delicious leather jacket you've ever seen. Dresses, cardigans, you guys, even shoes. This is just one more way Able is out here doing the absolute most with their amazing style for everyone and their ethical practices. So head over to ableclothing.com and use my code JEN to save a little something extra. So that's ableclothing.com, code JEN.
I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about Live from Here in the NPR days. What a great show, and it pandemic wreaked havoc like it did on so many spaces and places. But the music was amazing. I'm so sorry that I never got to see it live. I have so many regrets around that. Yeah, your segment out in America was so fantastic, and um, I'd like to hear you talk about your experience with that particular show, with that venue, with that arena being an NPR, which is such a specialized place too. Um, and then being on the road with it, like, did you enjoy? Because this is different. It was a different type of structure,
Yeah,
obviously, and
yeah.
so I'd love to hear sort of your takeaways from that season of your life.
It was great. It was, you know, I always loved Prairie Home Companion with Garrison Keillor. It was just one of those things that just, I was one of those people who, when I was driving, it just found me. That show kind of found you on the radio when you were driving to wherever, like going to gigs or whatever. And I always adored it. And then, so then when the opportunity came up to be a part of the new version of it, uh, I was very excited. And because I do this Come to Papa show in New York, which is pretty much Prairie Home Companion with comedians more than musicians. There's a little music to it, but I was basically just doing Prairie Home, my version of what I thought in the hands of comics, because it was it was comedy, but it was humorous. And I was like, what would what would it be like if it was pure comedians going as hard as they could? So anyway, I had been prepping for that. So it was a perfect fit when they came to me. It was like, I'm writing sketches. I know comedy. I love the show. And Chris Thiele became the host, and we met, and he adored it the same way. And he had been on it. And so we had this opportunity, and he was cool enough to ask me to shepherd the spoken word part of it. Which was just amazing. It was great. It was just to be in that space. Like when we went to the the Fitzgerald Theater, where they did most of them in St. Paul, and like to be standing at where Garrison stood and doing my monologue, which he is, Lake Wobegon, and I had this out in America, and I was, it's like an eighth grader showing up and asking if I can hang out with the seniors. But I really loved it, and I wrote a ton. And then I was like also in charge of the sketches, so we had this great team of writers and performers, and it was a little fragmented. And Chris is the heart of it, and he's pure music. He is just he's a genius. And so it felt a little like you had to work really hard. We were remote, and to try and get this thing to kind of coagulate and become one thing. And I think it did, but I think it was a little bit more towards the music side. And there were a lot of all talk NPR stations that were like, this is pretty eclectic music for our crowd. Personally, I wrote more than ever because I had my stand up. I was writing a book, and then I had this, and I had to do a original 5 to 7 minute monologue every week without ever being in front of an audience. So I had to write it quickly and then rewrite it all week long. while also dealing with all the sketches. And there was not at that time, we did it for like 2 years, maybe 3 years. There wasn't a minute where my laptop wasn't open and I was writing something. It was intense. And I would land in some place and drive to the theater with my opening act. And as the show's about to get started, I have my laptop open and I'm dealing
Oh
with
my
the
gosh.
sketches and talking to the people. And then as soon as it's done, I'm back in my room writing,
Yeah.
uh, re-editing all the sketches right after I did my show. I'm just like, it was
Gosh.
nonstop. And
In a way
it
that you
was
liked, or was it too much?
I liked it, but I could tell when when I didn't have to do it, what a relief it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
It was a relief.
You had no
Uh
margin to even have an off week. There just wasn't any.
no,
You just
there
had to
wasn't any.
you had to produce.
I didn't watch a movie on a plane
Mm,
in 2 years. Like I
yeah.
literally, there was no room for anything but writing,
Hmm.
which was great. I mean, it was cool, and we did good work, and I loved it. But there was something was going to have to give
Yeah.
at a
Yeah.
certain point, you
Yeah.
know?
That's not sustainable for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
But
But
in
we cranked
short
out a lot of
run,
stuff.
yeah, you
Yeah,
did. In short run, that's such a memorable experience and so special. Did you have a favorite? I mean, you did so many hilarious segments. I mean, it was just packed with hilarity and nonsense and bits.
yeah.
Like, did you have a moment where you just thought this is the funniest thing that's ever happened on this show?
No, I mean, it was really, for me, it was about the monologue. And it was even like there was one step where they were kind of parsing out eliminating the spoken word more and more each week. A sketch would go, then two sketches would go, and then there was firings and stuff. And my monologue was the thing I really wanted to hold on to. And that was the biggest takeaway, was that I could write, that it was the process of writing and rewriting. I could get something in stand-up shape in 1 week. And then my ear was so in tune that I knew what was going to be funny. It was very few times when there was surprises. You know, when I do stand up, you're a little more casual with it. And you, like we said earlier, you take it up to the stage and see if they like it. And if they do, and then it's like, over a month or two, you've got this joke. And it was like, you have 6 days. And to go at it aggressively like that and really have in your head and the ear and the rhythm, and it's like, and I really feel like that process should be put towards stand up as much as you can, because you could grow and be deeper and more quickly
Hmm.
than, but there's something about comedy. It's like, yeah, we'll
Yeah.
see. Let's see.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Let's take it
There's
back.
something about that lit fire under your feet that
Yeah.
just pushes you probably to a new place of innovation and expediency and even just developing your own internal instincts for
That,
that
yeah.
particular crowd,
Yeah.
that time frame. I mean, I'm sure you just had that well healed by the time the show was over.
Completely. And as you say, like the one thing that the advantage was, I could read it. I could stand there and read it with
Oh
paper in my
yeah,
hand.
yeah.
So that's the disadvantage with stand up. I can't really do that.
Mm,
You have to try and get it in your head, and then it's not. I can get it as fine tuned and know exactly, but if I go up there without notes and just am talking, doing stand up, it's not going to be as specific as it was written. It'll
uh-huh.
still help it, but it
Yeah, but you're gonna
definitely,
wing it a little.
yeah,
I will
yeah,
tell you of the many things that I admire about stand-up comedy, and they're legion for me. I regularly marvel at your capacity to memorize an hour of material. I can't believe that you can do it like without missing a beat and catching all your segues and remembering all the little minutia bits that are embedded in one bit. And I mean, that alone feels so hard to me to have no
yeah,
notes, no
yeah.
teleprompter. Was that always like a natural ability you had to memorize?
Yeah. I mean, but it's, when I'm doing acting work, uh, I don't remember it as much as when it is a weird thing. It's kind of a very strange thing I don't really understand. It's Like they'll be what I can't understand is there are some comedians like Seinfeld, you could ask him about a joke from 30 years ago and he knows the joke. He's so specific and structured and it's still in his head. When I go and do another thing and I'm moving on, that old stuff,
You lose it.
I lose it. I'll
Hmm.
have to ask my wife, like, what someone said something about a joke I had about a poodle, and she'll be like, and she will remember it more than I will because my head is now filled with this new stuff. It is a weird thing. Yeah. I don't know if it's your subconscious is letting it go so it doesn't influence you, or you just have to kind of, or if it's just literally a computer that's running out of memory and you can only put so much in it. But yeah, like I can't believe that people can remember this act plus the other acts that they've done.
It's impressive. It's
Yeah.
impressive to watch.
Yeah.
And just watching somebody lock into their own muscle memory on material in a
Yeah.
seamless way that doesn't make us feel anxious in the crowd. Like, oh,
Yeah.
he can't find it. He can't find it. Like,
Yeah,
it's
I know.
meandering. That's so like anxiety producing. And so just to have this real confident delivery on stage for an hour, it's just a really like a monument to me. It doesn't get as much applause as it should. Just the simple fact of being able to deliver for that long. But I'm curious, because I obviously I mean, you're in film, you're a writer, you're podcasting. There's so much that you do. I mean, I don't even know if this is a fair question because it's kind of apples to oranges, but of all the different verticals that you operate in, do you have one that you love the most? That when you're in it, the whole process, the whole thing is just like, this is when the wind is at my back. This is what I love the most.
I think it's I think it's stand up,
Yeah.
but it's that almost goes without saying. Like that's just me. So to even call that like one of the things is kind of not fair. It's like it's so good, it's so great. You get the response, you get the physical, the mental, the applause, the scariness, like all of it is so raw and potent. Of the other stuff that I do, I think it's the writing of the books. Like, I know comedian friends that have written a book and they're like, I'll never do that again. And I just came out, my third one just came out, and I'm already like moving into what's going to be next. I love that. Once I learned what that process was, and a lot of it did come from, the live from here experience, and I was always more of a writer's comedian. Uh, I love that. I really do like that process. And I have this morning radio show, which has messed up that process because I got into such a good routine of getting my coffee, coming in before the day starts, go to work. And now I have the show that has eaten up that space. And it's because it's made it difficult to kind of keep that routine, but that's just in my head. The process of it though, like I really, really enjoy that. It's isolating. Like I don't know if I could do it without being a stand-up because at least I get to go up and connect with people. If you're just purely a writer, and I've had my eyes open on other writers and seeing how they live and what they do, and it's not much other than writing. Like they have to be in that shop all the time.
It's true. It's
It
true. I'm a
really is.
writer. I've written a lot of books, but
Yeah.
I um speak and I do like live events too. And so during the pandemic, when those were all shuttered, obviously, and all I had was my little laptop and my little house and these four walls and no human people, I I vowed I would never ever again complain about travel, about hotels, about any of it because
Yeah.
I did not realize how much I needed that competing rhythm of
Hmm.
a live room and just human bodies.
Why? What?
Um,
What was happening to you?
I was just losing my. I felt like my skill that I had honed at that point to really like read my community and read my audience and feel these are the points that we have a lot of momentum together on. These are the ideas, these are the conversations. This is what's resonant. This isn't. And the live rooms gave me that almost subconsciously. I just absorbed it. And so I could come back to the little quiet room, the writing room, and I felt like I was a more competent writer. But I was just alone in my little brain
Yeah.
without any feedback, and I found it really hard.
Yeah. I could see people going a little crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
I think you, because it's, I mean, it's a level of isolation I really didn't understand. Like you have to isolate yourself from the people in your house. Like you have to really, you don't have to do it all day. And there's this great book called, I think it's Daily Rituals, and it's about mostly writers, how they worked. And it's, everybody had built in, okay, now I go deal with the humans.
Oh, yeah, that's
and then
right.
I
And
and then
now
come
this is
back.
done, and I will go out there with the people. Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
How did you feel in the writing process? Because you are a solo creator, generally speaking, and to have to incorporate so much like editorial direction and somebody else's opinion about what you have written and the direction that you've gone. Did you find that complicated, or did you enjoy having another set of eyes? Well, or a bunch of eyes, frankly, by the time editing is over, on
I
your
liked
work?
it. I have a great editor at St. Martin's Press, and we have like a, she gave me a lot of room, like gave me a lot of this is written like in your voice. It maybe isn't correct or whatever, but it's like she was really good at kind of cultivating and helping me grow. I definitely appreciate it. I was, because I worked by myself primarily, the first two books I didn't really give over until they were really, really, really late in the game. It was pretty done. The last one, I was like, I'm gonna give it early and have a little, yeah, kind of, or like a in segments. Yeah, and I didn't like it as much. She's great, and but I just didn't like having another voice in my head while I was doing it. I'm cool with, hey, this didn't work, or you should change that. Like I'm good with it afterwards. But like Stephen King says, don't like share it with anybody. Like keep it until it's, don't share it, because the biggest problem, the biggest, one of the biggest hurdles that writers have is, is your own head saying, is this good enough? And you start tearing it down and stop yourself from working with your critical mind. So if that's true, then why am I bringing in another critical mind, when it's not really, I haven't gone the full length yet.
Completely. That's my process too. I deliver a
Yeah.
book baked. It's
Yeah.
done. It's cooling on
Yeah.
the cooling rack.
Right.
And
Yeah.
because my own neuroses is enough to stunt the process. And so
Totally.
and then also there's this, what a first draft does for me, it just gives me the possibility of putting words on a page that I know I'm not going to keep it in this version or in this form or in this particular iteration. But if I can get the words down and out of my head, I can manipulate them later. But with an editorial eye too soon, saying, are you really going to include that? That takes me completely out of the, like, I think truth telling space. Um, because I'm already worried. I feel like I need to just say, I'm not going to keep it like this. And I know this is going to be edited, and I can't work like that. That to me hinders me. I feel hamstrung. In fact, I started a book just recently. I'm writing it right now, and it is in a Word document with a handful of people that some of my creative partners, that we were just simply workshopping large sweeping ideas on it. Anyway, they have access to my Word doc, and I'm like, I got to change this. Because they'll be like, oh,
Yeah.
I popped in last night to see what you've written. I'm like, oh, no, no, this is not acceptable.
No, that's a
I need to be in a
nightmare.
cave. Yeah, I need to be
Yeah.
in a hidden cave while while I'm doing
Yeah,
this
that's
part.
terrible. That's
Terrible.
why, yeah, that's why whenever I hear that someone wrote something with somebody else,
Oh yeah.
you're like, well, they didn't write it at all. That other person that we're not familiar, right?
That's right. That's right.
This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Sometimes, even often, we're faced with tough choices. All of us, really. Sometimes the path forward isn't that clear at all. So, I mean, really, show me a human person who hasn't dealt with this. I mean, decisions around, you name it, career, relationships, family, so many things. And I've been there, of course. And therapy helped me. It helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate everything life throws at you. So you can move forward, not just with confidence, but even like excitement. I've learned that trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. Like the more you practice it, the easier it gets. And so if you're thinking of trying therapy, just think about trying BetterHelp. It's entirely online. It's convenient and flexible, suited to your schedule. Just fill out a really brief questionnaire and you'll get matched with a licensed therapist. And you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge if you need to. So let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/forthelove today and you'll get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/forthelove.
I can't not let you go without talking a little bit about baking and bread and cooking. I love that this is you have this thing to you, which I do too. I'm a nonfiction writer. I write books for women, but I wrote a cookbook that came out last year because my little side thing of cooking and food is just so outside of my life and something that I love so much. I'm like, well, why not? And so I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about baking. And I also love your obsession with just learning. So you're going to read all the damn books and you're going to do all the things and you're going to put them into practice. And so what is that like for you? Because it's completely different. I mean, you're still being a funny, creative person, but you're in a kitchen.
Yeah.
So what has that been like and how did that come about? And were you driving that train or did somebody else say, hey, you have something here?
I always cooked, but I never baked
Yeah.
because I felt like baking was, I was always told it's precision and it's science and I'm sloppy and more visceral. And I was like, well, I can't really bake. But then a friend of mine taught me about sourdough starter and how real bread is made. And when I started doing that, I realized, well, this is baking, but there is more feel to it. This isn't making macarons. This is like, there's room here. This is closer to cooking, I think, than baking in a way. And I just got really obsessed with it. I got really into it. I couldn't believe that what a difference real bread was from all this bread that I was trying to feed my family that I thought was healthy, but was just filled with all this extra ingredients. And then I started thinking, well, this doesn't make any sense that our generation now is told that we can't eat bread. It's like for centuries it was okay. And now all of a sudden it's this evil. And I was like, I realized flour, water, salt, and yeast is real bread. And this other stuff is not. And that's why people have problems with it. So I love that. And it really started to fold into the writing schedule. Like when you're home, to do a loaf of bread is 3 days from beginning to end. And if I'm home and I'm writing and I'm in this healthy kind of fun writing space, the bread is the thing that gets you up away from your desk. And then you go tend to that. Then you come back and you just do it. So it really just became it's been years now. And I'm just this morning, before I spoke to you, I was feeding the starter for later because I started it yesterday. And then I also have this poolish, which it's kind of like an activated yeast dough flour concoction that I started yesterday to make baguettes later on today. So before, as I just, it is bizarre. Like I'll walk into the kitchen and I feed the starter and I make my coffee and then I see what's the time map for all right, I got to go do another podcast after this one. And then when I come back, when will I shape the baguettes? When will I get them in the oven? Like, is there room in the day to fit that in? And, and then there's like this mindless, there's
Mm,
definitely, there has to be this emotional part to it.
for sure.
Like my, uh, my, uh, kids are at school now. So I come back to the house and it's like yesterday I found myself making a ciambello, which is this Italian lemon kind of pastry cake. Uh, so there's definitely something at play where I just need to have focus other than what else is going on in your life.
Totally. And what is more nurturing and nourishing than homemade sourdough bread? Nothing. Like that is to me the picture of like just nurture. And it's still creative. It's very creative. Like you're still like scratching the itch that you've always had, but just in a different genre, and everybody gets to enjoy it. I mean, you've got to be the hero of the home. You
Yeah.
must be. I mean, not for
I
anything you do over here, of course, but for your bread.
Yeah. No,
Yes,
there's a quiet joy I have knowing like as you're baking it over the hour and you're opening the oven and doing this step, taking the lid off of the Dutch oven and then letting just know it just when you hit that point where the house is now filled with that smell, that's like there's like a quiet, like I know I'm doing a good, I may not be giving you great advice.
that's
Maybe
right.
I've been a little short, maybe who knows, but
Sure.
at least I added to this.
I just couldn't agree more. That's the exact
Yeah.
reason I love the kitchen.
Yeah,
It
it's
covers a
great.
multitude of sins.
What's your
And the
favorite thing to cook?
I'm not a good baker, and so this is why I think why I'm fascinated with your journey into sourdough. But I really love if I had to pick a just a particular cuisine. I always lean sort of Southeast Asian. I love Thai. I like sweet and spicy,
Yeah.
really
Oh, that's good.
spicy. So
Yeah.
those are the foods that I always reach for. Like when you look at my refrigerator, it's all that. That's what it is. And so um but I'm also Texan. So I can be down with some southern brisket burgers. I have no shame at all
Yeah. Yeah.
around some of that like just very the red meat sort of
Yeah.
consumption.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but I just enjoy
That's
cooking.
good. It
Yeah,
is
I
interesting,
enjoy
like
it.
the Thai thing, like that your kitchen is that. Like I'm not that. It's mostly Italian and then baking, and so it's like whenever I want to venture into that, it's like
Uh-huh.
I need everything. Like
So
because it's
you got
so
to buy it
foreign.
all.
Yeah, because it's so far, and it's like
Yes.
I need rice wine vinegar
I need
and
oyster sauce. Yes,
yeah.
exactly. Do you make your own pasta?
No, I
Okay.
don't.
That might be
I
your next
don't.
frontier. It's the cousin. It's
I
the cousin
know.
to homemade healthy bread.
Yeah, it really is. I've read some things by some, I read all these books and that like the dry pot like the difference between the dry pasta and the homemade like isn't that great. It's not great enough for how much work it
Mm,
is. But
it's true.
every time I see on Instagram somebody making pasta, I'm like,
Yeah.
how can I not be doing this?
That's how I feel too.
Yeah.
I feel jealous of the homemade pasta people, but I'm like, but do I want to do that? That feels hard.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I have 5 kids. Now they don't all live here. They're grown and growing, but
Yeah.
I have a lot of mouths to feed. I don't think I can make that much pasta. There isn't enough pasta to
Right.
feed all these boys. Um,
Yeah.
so last, I just would love to, I'd love to hear what you're working on and what's coming up for you. And secondarily, what you would love to do, what you'd like to see like in your next 3 or 4 or 5 years, back to film, whatever. Like you have a lot of tools in your toolkit. So what's going on for you now? What would you love to have be going on soon?
Right now, it's mostly about the act. I'm going to do my next special probably the beginning of next year. And I'm in good shape, but I want it to be great. So it's like I'm writing, and I haven't been writing as much for other, like I'll write essays and try and get them in the New Yorker, and I'll be working on the next book, and I'm haven't really been aggressively going after that other stuff. Excuse me. And I think it's because I'm putting that writing muscle purely on the act. So I'm cutting myself some slack that I'm not, that if I am writing aggressively after the act, then it's okay that I'm not writing that other stuff. And right now I am. So, but I do have 2 ideas for the next book that I'm noodling with, of what that's going to be. I feel like I don't want to be too repetitive. Like, could I go but going completely in a different direction is kind of scary. And I don't know if people would want that from me. So I'm not really too sure. Before the strike, I have something in development at one of the networks. The thing that's been kind of intriguing to me, the one thing that I haven't done is I haven't made a film. And that seems to me like, and I've know some people at different levels who've made films, like people
You mean
who,
write it, produce it, do the whole, is that what you,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
sure.
So I feel like there's something percolating with that, where I feel like that would be, I love being in control. I'm in control of my books. I'm in control of my act. I'm in control of my podcasts. It's like, then you go into this acting world and I'm totally at other people's whims. It's like, will they hire me? Will they say yes to this idea? Will they approve of the script? And it's like, if I could write my own film and go and shoot it, it's like I'm bringing that control back to that part. And that's really, really intriguing to me.
I mean, you have all the raw materials of doing that as a writer, as an actor. You've got the experiential chops to back that up, and probably also the partners. You're friends with so many interesting creatives and writers and performers, and you have a deep well to pull from. That's super exciting.
Yeah, a lot of
I
people I
love
could bother.
totally, absolutely. Call in every favor, like
Yeah.
use threats and bribery. I'm above none of
Yeah.
it.
Me
Um,
neither.
None of it. Okay, awesome. I've just loved talking to you. Thank you so much for letting us kind of peek behind the curtain of your process and your work and your just such an amazing career, like truly, truly special. This is the final question. I ask everybody this, actually. Every guest in every series gets this. I borrowed this from somebody else, and you can answer this however you want, by the way. It could answer it in an absurd way or in an earnest way. We don't care. The question is, what is saving your life right now?
What is saving my life right
Mhm.
now? Perspective.
Mm,
It's perspective. There's a perspective that you get at a certain stage in life that is it's right now. There's lots of change and there's lots of external forces and internal stuff. There's a lot going on, but I feel like I've played this game and have a calmness and a perspective that is really, really valuable.
oh, God, bottle it
Yeah.
and sell it.
Yeah.
I think
That's this week.
that's right. That's right. That's something that really almost nothing but time and age can give us,
Yeah.
really,
Right.
just living long
Exactly.
enough. Hmm.
Yeah. And you see it like whenever I see people talk, it's a common, we all are playing by the same blueprint. And when people are around my age, they all say the same thing. It's like, so I've just entered that realm.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I am too, and
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And I have enough young adults in my actual family who are prepared to let me know that the world is burning down around us every other day. So
Right.
they'll keep me in check with my perspective.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, last. Can you just tell my listeners where to find you and follow you and see your work and get your books, what's the best Tom one-stop shop?
I'd go to tompapa.com. Everything's
Perfect.
there. The link to the books, the
Yep.
podcast, everything. And then
That's great.
and all social media.
Okay, perfect. Thanks again for being on today. It's
This was great.
just delightful to talk to you. And I just can't wait for you to write your film so we can all go
Yeah,
see it. We will
that'd be
look forward
nice.
to that. It's been spoken into the universe, so let it be. Let it be.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll see you
Thank
at the
you.
premiere.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, you guys. Wasn't he enjoyable? And by the way, if ever you want to watch one of the podcasts, we video all these interviews and they're over on my YouTube channel. Sometimes it's just really fun to watch a guest talk and to see us sort of interact in that way, sort of with our faces and our body language. Of course, that's how I experience every interview. So that's my preferred mechanism. If ever you just want to pop it open and watch the interview that's over there. Anyway, as mentioned, Tom has all his stuff over at his website. So if you go to jenhatmaker.com under the podcast tab, I will have everything that you need for this episode, for Tom's socials, his books, everything. If you'd like more of him, and why wouldn't you? And so I hope you're enjoying the funny series like I am. What I like about it, it's not just clowning around. Like we're not just doing bits or we're not just being funny. I love talking to funny people as people because they're just people. And so getting to learn about their lives a little bit and their processes and how they got into comedy and who made them laugh first. That to me is where it's really interesting. And we get to peek behind the curtain of this genre of folks. And so more to come. You guys, if you've missed any of the series, I can't recommend you subscribing to the show enough. Subscribe if you haven't already. It'll just show up for you. You won't even have to search it out. And you can see any of the episodes that you missed. So, you guys, on behalf of Amanda and I and Laura and her team, we just surely love you and love bringing this show to you. And we'll see you next week.